Well, thank you for coming. I'm Congressman Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader. And before we begin our press conference, I do want to convey our Houston. Behind me, you'll see a number of members who are serving in Congress and two members running for Congress. Those two members, Wesley Hunt, Morgan Luttrell, have served our nation. They know the importance of the strength of keeping a strong economy, building allies, but also standing up to threats, and why we're here in Houston today and what I want to talk about today. You know, for 50 years, the Chinese Communist Party has launched an assault on the American way of life, on our economy, on our jobs, on our companies, on our culture, on our institutions, on our very future. They've unleashed a pandemic, monopolized supply chains, stolen our jobs and intellectual property, and placed propagandists in our media, on our research centers, in our high schools, on our colleges, and even in our PTA meetings. Just look at what took place here in Houston. You know, Secretary Pompeo said it, if the Chinese Consulate was a hub of spying and intellectual property theft, stealing from research institutions and companies in Texas. And Texas is a leader in our nation, especially when it comes to healthcare, from energy, from technology, and others. The Trump administration stood up and had the guts to call it exactly what it was, to hold them accountable. And think about it, if you're innocent of wrongdoing, normally a bonfire to destroy thousands of documents wouldn't be necessary. But that's exactly what we saw on top of the consulate. What we proposed, and not just there, looking at the rest of the future of the nation, I reached out a couple years ago to Speaker Pelosi, asked if we could create a bipartisan that we needed to move forward. So I looked to Michael McCaul, a leader in so many areas, former prosecutor, to head up a China commission. I'm very proud of the work that they have done. When they were finished, 2/3 of all the ideas that they produced were bipartisan. I've watched both sides of the aisle look out and give the voices, give the ideas of how we can confront the Communist Party, how we can make sure that they don't control our critical minerals, that they don't control our medical supply, that they don't control other industries to go after as they have today. Later this month, we'll roll out the Commitment to America. And inside the Commitment to America, we lay out a number of proposals of how to bring that supply chain away from the Communist Party of China and back to America. Build that supply chain here to make America stronger with more American jobs and protect our intellectual property. And Michael McCaul has done a tremendous job with a number of members throughout, and we look forward in the majority of expanding not just that task force, but a committee itself dealing with the Chinese Communist Party. With that, I'd like to bring up Congressman Michael McCaul.
Thanks, Leader.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Leader, and welcome to Texas. It's great to have you.
California.
California and Texas, we get that a lot these days. I want to thank you, Kevin, for your strong leadership on this issue. He's always been out there on protecting American jobs, supply chain from China, who I consider to be the biggest threat now to our national security. He had the vision 2 years ago to do this task force. Should have been bipartisan, but the Democrats decided they didn't want this to be a bipartisan issue. So we went forward with it anyway. This is our task force report. Hundreds of legislative recommendations, many of which have already passed the Congress. And I look forward to announcing your commitment to America, our commitment to America, about what we're going to do with respect to China. And we're going to do a lot. But I want to step back, if I could, just to 1997. I served on a DOJ China task force when they were trying to meddle in our elections. And I prosecuted the Johnny Chung case. And through his cooperation, we revealed that the director of intelligence, Chinese intelligence, and China Aerospace were putting money in his Hong Kong bank account to then put into the Clinton campaign. Why is this so important? Because it's come full circle. What did they want back then? Why did they do this? They wanted to get in the WTO, but also they wanted technology. They wanted aerospace technology. They wanted satellite technology, and President Clinton was willing to do that. And so we gave them a lot of technology. And what we didn't give them, they stole from us. And now I would argue that we sell it to them, like the hypersonic missile that they launched, went around the world with precision and landed that could have a nuclear payload on the front of it. Built on the backbone of American technology, that's going to stop when we take back the majority. That has to stop. So what's happening today? It's a great power competition between the United States and China. 2 years ago, Secretary of State Pompeo, a dear friend of ours, former colleague, exercised his authority to shut down the Houston Consulate. Why? Because MD Anderson, that we all know and love here in Houston, was being all the IP, the 1,000 Talents program that China has to cultivate researchers to conduct espionage and send IP back to the mothership in Beijing. They were also hitting NASA at the same time, but they were also hitting all across the country. Just having the Houston Consulate was the hub and the den of spies, as Secretary Pompeo called it. And what I want to focus on really is, remember you saw the burning fires on the top of the consulate? The fact is, we got a lot of great documents. We had a treasure trove out of there. So what has the Department of Justice done since then? Well, under the Trump administration, they indicted 130 individuals, including PLA, the People's Liberation Army, military officers who were dispatched through visa fraud into the United States to cultivate researchers under the 1,000 Talents program. They committed espionage. They were indicted. What has the Biden administration done now, the DOJ Biden administration? First of all, they shut down the China initiative that the Trump administration started, a China initiative to prioritize espionage within the Department of Justice. Guess what? Espionage hasn't gone away, but the cases have gone way down, as evidenced by the fact that they've only brought charges against 19 individuals, and they've dismissed 7 cases, including the PLA officers I mentioned. So why is the Biden administration so weak on China? Why wasn't Nancy Pelosi willing to work with us on such an important national security issue? I look at the global map. Weakness invites aggression, and that is the tone of this administration. After Afghanistan fell, Putin invades Ukraine. Chairman Xi is looking at Taiwan right now. He's looking at the South Pacific, Indo-Pacific, to take back what my father's generation fought for, like when he signed the security agreement with the Solomon Islands, now is under the PRC's thumb, that the greatest generation liberated for freedom and democracy. Well, I can assure you this, when we get back the majority, and I'm confident we will, and Kevin McCarthy will be the next Speaker of the House, when he becomes the Speaker and we have the gavels, my priority will be to stop exporting these technologies and selling these technologies to China so they can build their own war machine that will then in turn be pointed at us. And the hypersonics are a great example of that. So let me just say that when we get the majority back, we're going to prepare America to win the great power competition against China. So with that, we have some great members and members-to-be here, and I want to start to introduce them. First, we have our 2 GOP nominees for Texas 38 and 8, 2 veterans of war, 2 war heroes, 1 Navy SEAL, 1 Apache helicopter pilot, Wesley Hunt and Morgan Luttrell.
Wesley and I are done talking. It's time to go to work. We'll see you in January. Thank you.
Amen. Amen.
Probably the 2 most popular nominees running for office right now. Next is a dear friend of mine. You all know him here in Houston. I can't say enough good things about Kevin Brady. a real leader, chairman of Ways and Means, got the tax cuts bill done that got our economy moving again. And we're going to miss you, buddy, but I know you'll be close, and it's still a good friend. So please welcome Congressman Kevin Brady.
Michael, thank you very much, not just for your friendship. Your leadership, the China Accountability Task Force, has been the best I've ever seen of an important issue like this, so thank you. And to thank you, Leader McCarthy, for your strength and commitment to holding China accountable, not through talk, but through actions and words and deeds. And I also want to thank our host today, Chairwoman Cindy Siegel, and the Harris County Republican Party for the remarkable work they are doing to turn Harris County and return Harris County red and keep Texas red as well. Sure, President Biden says China, America's greatest challenge abroad is China. But what's he actually done to confront the first year of his presidency? Joe Biden's strategy for China was a single paragraph, one paragraph, and it showed. For some reason, he simply refuses to confront China, to hold them accountable, even when American companies and China play by the rules, or even meet its obligations, agreed to in President Trump's historic Phase 1 agreement to end China's brutally unfair trade practices. President Biden hasn't insisted, so China hasn't complied. And as a result, today, China continues to steal America's intellectual property with impunity, to force U.S. companies to transfer technology simply because they're doing business in China. They manipulate the currency and they erect American technologies and manufacturing for global dominance, like robotics, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and transportation innovation. Yet this president is ceding those industries to China, refusing to arm American companies with the economic power to compete and win against China. And unbelievably, world, including against China. And while China aggressively reaches new regional trade agreements in Asia and with America's trading partners, they are shaping the world and the future to their advantage, to their workers, to moratorium on any new American trade agreements. And unlike the Trump White House, he is refusing to step onto the trade field to fight for American workers, to fight for American businesses, and to fight for our values. So if we're serious about countering China's economic aggression around the world, America must lead on trade again, delaying their retirement, a shrinking economy that each day falls farther and farther behind China. Or we can elect a Republican Congress with the strength and the backbone that challenges China's economic aggression and cheating and insists they play by the rules. A Republican Congress committed to restoring a strong economy that's growing, not shrinking, where paychecks grow faster than prices, where we are back at work, and where our businesses can compete and win anywhere in the world, including against China. In Joe Biden, China has a friend in the White House. But what America needs are leaders with the strength and the backbone to hold China accountable. Since Joe Biden won't, the most important step America can take is to elect a Republican Congress and Speaker McCarthy to counter China's economic aggression. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. And I think trade and it's one of the best ways to compete with China. And Interestingly, President Biden lifted trade barriers on batteries and solar panels from China that are made, guess where, in the Xinjiang province, where they commit genocide and slave labor against the Uyghur Muslims in gross violation of human rights. I mean, it's just amazing. You can't make this up. So, but next on the list, former Navy SEAL. He's well known in Austin, I think. And Dan Crenshaw, dear friend, and a great Texan. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you, Leader McCarthy, for coming out to Texas. Welcome all Californians. We know that when you come out here, that you understand why you left, Kevin included, and we're looking forward to you as Speaker of the House. I think we all are definitely looking forward to that. A bit of change in direction. Kevin Brady, always have to say a few words about my friend Kevin. We're going to miss him very much. This is a man of great intellect that is leaving our conference. Fortunately, he will be replaced by another excellent future member, Morgan Luttrell. Of course, Kevin has a very difficult decision to make in November, and that's who he's going to vote for, because I will be on the ballot, and where Kevin lives will be my new constituent, which he's very excited about, of course.
I am very excited.
Yeah, he's got all my signs. We're all very excited about it. My best volunteer.
He is way too happy about it.
I'm very happy about it. No, he will be sorely missed. We have a great delegation. I was very proud to be up here with this group. So we're here to talk about China, and I think talk about how the veil needs to be lifted. Right? For decades, American intellectuals and elites have misread Chinese intentions. For decades, there's been China apologists believing that they were a developing country who would grow into their democracy, who are our ally against the Soviets. And this opening to China and this delivering, sometimes overt and purposeful delivering of technology to China has put us into this situation now. Most people, most of American intellectuals and elites who were former China apologists have woken up out of this slumber, most of them. But then you have a president like Joe Biden who, when his own Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, goes to Taiwan, as she should have, he throws her under the bus and says, I'm not so sure this is a really good idea. It's hard to imagine a weaker statement. So we are in a real problem here. We have to all get on the same page about the true nature of China and the true nature of Chinese intentions. And the list is very long. We have over 100,000 people dying of opioid overdoses every year in this country. 80,000 of those are directly related to fentanyl. Where's fentanyl coming from? The basic components come from China through the Mexican drug cartels and lacing whatever drug someone is taking here in the United States. 80,000 people. If that's not an act of war from the Mexican drug cartels and from the Chinese suppliers, then I don't know what is. We have to be waking up to this. The Trump administration, to at least address that to the best way that they could. We haven't heard a peep out of the Biden administration on how to address something like that. We have both sides, both ports at either end of the Panama Canal owned by Chinese. Does anyone think that's a good idea? I can't imagine we do. We need a pivot. We need a pivot that looks to the Pacific and builds alliances there, looks to Australia, Japan, and India as solid allies against the Chinese. And we need to look south of our border too, because that's the threat that's right here, right in front of us. And if nobody cares about any of that, and maybe some of the folks listening to this care just about climate change, care about the environmental question, and some would even go as far as to say that the Chinese are the ones who are really pushing for green energy. They're the ones doing all the right stuff because they build all the solar panels that we buy. But that's complete nonsense. They are by far the number one emitter in the world. They're at like 30%. The United States is at 13% or so and declining. For the past couple of decades, for every ton of carbon that we've reduced, that they'll just increase it by another 4 tons. Solar and wind capacity than it would the equivalent amount of energy produced by, say, a natural gas or nuclear plant. So somebody tell me that's good for the environment, especially when it's being produced by a country that has zero environmental regulations and is usually doing this stuff with slave labor. We have to wake up and take a holistic view of the problem. The Chinese have invested more in coal capacity, both in their own country and around the world, than any other country, by far. you care about climate change, you care about the environment, then the number one thing that you should be going for is replacing coal generation with natural gas generation. Where's that natural gas generation going to come from? The United States. We export more natural gas from Texas, and I promise you we will reduce global emissions. The math is very simple. It's very simple. But nobody wants to believe that. People want to give China credit for their environmental standards, which is complete nonsense, and we have to be very vocal and very public about debunking that lie. It is simply not true. If you let Texas energy lead the way, if you let American energy lead the way, we will reduce emissions, we will have energy security, people won't have to worry about their air conditioning coming on in the summer or the heat coming on in the winter, and Kevin can charge his electric car in California. I had to.
Not this week.
Not this week. Gavin Newsom doesn't want you to charge your electric car because their energy grid is failing. That cannot be our future. We have to be smarter than that. And letting the Chinese produce and export our energy to here is the last thing that we need. And I appreciate, Kevin, you setting this up, and I appreciate all my colleagues for their acute attention on this important issue. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. I'd say on the energy issue, we mandated sanctions on Nord Stream 2, Putin's pipeline into Europe. And what does this president do? He waives our sanctions. We tried to take his waiver out, but he essentially allowed Putin to complete his pipeline into Europe, making them dependent on Russian energy, not American energy. And guess who's buying Russian energy now? China. And there's a carve-out exception in the sanctions, just for that. So, Dan, thanks for bringing up the energy issue. Next, we have another great Texan who's from an energy district, and another dear friend, Randy Weber.
Well, thank you, Chairman, for your leadership, and thank you, leader, for putting this together. And let me say something that our great leader said, and I don't want y'all to miss. Nancy Pelosi agreed on the front end to put together a bipartisan task force on this issue. That's how important it is. And then what does she do at the last minute? She backs out. They play politics again. They put politics first and Americans dead last. That's what they do. Kevin was not to be deterred. He went forward anyway. And you've got the report here of the China Task Force. Look through it, of all the recommendations. That's what we're going to do when we get back in power. Listen, folks, some of you all have heard about, you remember Pablo Escobar from Colombia, the great cocaine lord? And how about Juan Chapo, El Chapo, the great heroin lord from Mexico? Now we've got Chinese Communist Party, who's the fentanyl lord. They are literally co-sponsoring the drug cartels and bringing drugs across our border. And you're right, Dan, we are under an invasion. We are under invasion. 100,000 people, our great leader said last night, event I was at, that 100,000 people a year dying, that's 300 Americans a day. Today, 300 Americans will die. Tomorrow, 300 Americans will die. We've got to get in control. This is helping. Our leader, soon-to-be speaker, is committed to this. You're going to see that when we roll out Commitment to America. You're going to see a change. It is time for America to wake up and understand what the Democrats are doing. They're playing politics. They don't care if China steals our technology. They don't care if the drug lords are making billions of dollars coming across the border, even the deaths of 100,000 Americans. They're playing politics. They want global warming and climate change to be their main issue. They want the Green New Deal to be their main issue. We won't allow that to happen. When we get in control, we'll be back to business, as our great chairman said. We'll be back doing everything right so that Americans will have a better lifestyle. It's time to secure that border and put America first. Democrats, wake up. I yield back.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah, if I could just say, fentanyls are the #1 killer now of our youngest generation. And it's all coming from precursors from China into Mexico. Cartels cook it and make it, ship it across the border. My daughter personally has gone to 5 funerals of friends of hers not knowing what they were taking had fentanyl. And it's just, it's a tragedy that we don't talk about enough. Next, I've got Brian Babin, who represents the LBJ Space Center, the Johnson Space Center, NASA, who was actually impacted by the Houston Consulate trying to steal data and intellectual property from NASA. So, Brian?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for being here. I also want to thank Kevin McCarthy for getting this thing up, and Michael, thank you so much. We really appreciate having the opportunity to come over here and tell you of this enormous issue. It's the greatest external threat to the United States today is Communist China. They're not our friends, folks. They've never been our friend. They use our favors. They use our technology. They use our innovation and our goodwill to turn it right back on it and gain dominance over the United States of America. When Republicans retake the majority, we will finally hold the Chinese Communist Party responsible for their efforts to destabilize America. The growing threat of Communist China is far more severe, I think, than the average American realizes out there and recognizes. From the terrible human rights violations, COVID origins, and the containment of COVID, espionage right here in Houston as well, and intellectual property theft, and even involvement in the fentanyl crisis. As you've just heard, I'm a healthcare practitioner. Fentanyl belongs in the operating room, folks. And we are seeing between the ages of 18 and 45, the main cause of death is fentanyl poisoning and toxic and overdosing. That's coming from China up through Mexico. We can no longer allow China to get away with their actions. The Chinese military has the world's largest navy. They have the world's largest ground forces, and their space-based enterprise is growing by leaps and bounds. Bottom line is we can no longer continue to dismiss this threat posed by the Communist Chinese Party. Addressing this threat will require a whole-of-nation approach, which is what your task force has been doing, Michael, and thanks again to Leader McCarthy for having this. And we will approach with policies to enable the United States to not only compete with China, but to beat China. Unfortunately, when given the opportunity, congressional Democrats have chosen to concede to China by failing to ban funding to CCP-tied organizations, failing to punish the CCP for their blatant human rights violations, and failing to strengthen our competitive edge over on the world. The Democrats have given China a strategic economic advantage by allowing them to spread their mis- and disinformation campaigns and to steal our scientific technology. Where is the outrage on the other side of the aisle? Folks, I can guarantee you this. When we take back the House in November, and I think we will, things are going to change. And I look forward to working under Speaker Kevin McCarthy and with my colleagues up here to make it happen. So thank you.
That's a great point. The space race in the 60s was all about control of space against the Russians. Now, the big race is a space race against China. And so thank you for that perspective, Brian. Next, we have a non-Texan, but a dear friend at Texas. Where is he? There he is. Indiana. He's the chairman of the Republican Study Committee. And he also, I was honored to have him serve on the China Task Force, Jim Banks.
First of all, I want to thank Leader McCarthy and economically, and that's the type of identifying this as a primary focus and key issue that he's going to lead on when he's the chairman of that important committee as well. As a Hoosier, it's great to be in Texas because you have so many great leaders who are in the forefront of so many of the important issues that we're faced with in Congress. And that's why I'm very proud to be here with all of you today. You know, in a few months, Washington's going to be a lot different. Speaker Pelosi is going to be enjoying retirement on a beach in Italy, right? Dr. Fauci's going to be gone. The Speaker will be at war with our energy producers. He's going to be working toward energy independence. Attorney General Garland won't have time to snoop on concerned parents because he's going to be too busy explaining himself to Republicans in Congress on Capitol Hill instead. A lot is going to change overseas as well, most of all in China. Next week in Pennsylvania, Leader McCarthy and many of our Republican colleagues are going to release the Republican platform for next Congress, a quote, commitment You might own the White House, but you no longer will own the people's house. We are going to force this administration to enforce the law and hold China accountable. This will be a primary focus of a Republican-led majority in the Congress. We are going to force the Treasury Department to enforce sanctions on Uyghur slave labor. We're going to force the Education Department block China's illegal influence operations on our universities. And we will counter China's espionage across the country with the same seriousness that President Trump did when he cracked down on Chinese espionage right here in Houston. That's what China should expect from Republicans in Congress. And I can't think of anybody more capable to come to Washington to help us accomplish that than Morgan Luttrell and Wesley Hunt, who are two fellow veterans and two great patriots. I hope that all of the voters here will vote for them because they will bring that type of serious leadership that we need in Congress today more than ever to tackle our biggest threats. So thank you to Ranking Member, soon-to-be Chairman McCaul. It's an honor to be with you here today.
Let me just close by saying I want the leader to have an opportunity to take some questions, but the Belt and Road Initiative is real. China's in 140 countries across the world, Indo-Pacific, Africa, and Latin America, as it was previously mentioned. The Panama Canal, Roosevelt built it, Jimmy Carter gave it away, and now China owns it, or at least both sides of it. And we're seeing that all throughout Latin America as well. And so we got to wake up, and we got to start competing with China. It's not good enough to say they're a bad nation. We have to compete with them in all these areas, and primarily technology. So thanks to all my Texas friends. Jim, welcome. And Leader, I'll turn it over to you for any questions.
I thank Michael McCaul for his work, especially leading the nation when it comes to inside Congress, on how do we bring that supply chain back to America from China. When you look just in here, Texas is a very successful state. It's a leader in so many different areas, but from healthcare, MD Anderson, when my father got cancer, where did we come? We came to MD Anderson like most people around. You look at energy. The one thing we've always learned, and so many veterans who stand behind me in their service, I can't thank enough. A military makes you strong, but dependency makes you weak. We look what's happening in Europe today. Their dependency that it became upon an energy with Putin, and Putin utilizing energy for political bases and his own war to be able to expand where he wants to go. America has the ability to be energy independent. We've proven it. And we have the ability to help our allies at the same time. But we're watching what China's doing around the world, trying to capture industry after industry. We've got to be able to stand up to be able to compete. We've got to give our children an opportunity to compete in the future as well. And that's what we propose. In our commitment to America, we will start with an economy we want to make sure that we have a nation that is safe. We watch what the Democrats have done by causing inflation, but we watch funding the police. We want to fund them, and we want to make sure our prosecutors uphold every law. We want to make sure that we have a nation that is secure. We watch a border that has become unsecure, but when we talk about fentanyl that comes directly from China through the cartels in Mexico, let me put it in a clearer perspective. 300 people will die today from fentanyl poisoning. And don't think it's somebody else's children. It's all of our children. What's happening is they not think they're buying fentanyl. They may be going back to college and think they're getting a Xanax or buying a little pill to help them study a little longer. So 300 will die today. That's the equivalent of a plane crash, a full plane dying each and every day. My question to the White House is, why is that not a crisis? I know the Vice President will be in Houston today. That's not far from the border. I wish she would visit it. I wish she would have a discussion with what's happening and a clear understanding to help stop it. We have a chance to turn this country around. We have a chance to make sure the next 100 years is the American 100 years. And that's making sure that the manufacturing jobs come back here. I watched Kevin Brady, as chair of Ways and Means, produce a tax bill that no longer had companies leaving America because it was more competitive to be somewhere else, but move back to America. Now I watched an administration not willing to stand up to China, the China Communist Party, but that's what we will do. With that, let me open up to questions and comments.
When we closed the consulate 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago, if the espionage was happening everywhere in the United States, it wasn't just European companies that were obviously being impacted by that. When we closed the consulate, was that a less provocative step, so we wouldn't do something in, say, San Francisco or in D.C. that would maybe have raised the stakes?
No,
Were we too soft in what we did by just, focusing on Houston and not the rest of what China's doing in the United States?
No, I watched the Trump administration for the first time actually stand up. Name me another administration that ever closed down a Chinese Communist Consulate. And you watched what they did. They started burning. And why did Pompeo look and close in Houston? Because what they were doing, what they were stealing. The IP, what was happening in MD Anderson. We watched what they were doing in the energy fields as well. We watched what they do in our manufacturing. But let's take it a step further. They're inside Congress. We watched a Democrat member get appointed from Nancy Pelosi to the Intel Committee. We watched the FBI come to her and warn her of a relationship with a Chinese spy. She kept him on Intel. I've had that same briefing. I know there's two other Democrats who could serve on there, but Eric Swalwell should not be on the Intel Committee. If he was in the private sector, he could not get a security clearance. But the Democrats gave him a security clearance to all the secrets of America, which is wrong. Somebody else should serve right there. We've watched for a decade the individual body person who drove Senator Feinstein was a Chinese spy as well. And when you look at the history of Swalwell, the Chinese spy created a relationship when he was on the city council. If they have gone that far, think about what they were doing. But now we watched an administration back away from the prosecution of those of the Chinese that we've caught doing things in America they should not. We've watched them, have they continued to pursue other avenues to stand up to China? Or that we've just watched them give more money to buy more renewables made and manufactured in China from the hardworking taxpayers of America. Why don't we look to Americans to build those? Why don't we build the American jobs? And why don't we unshackle what's holding back our energy fields to make sure we're energy independent at the same time?
When they closed that consulate 2 years ago, we did several stories with Chinese Americans here in Houston who were concerned about what that might do to relations with people in the community. Could you guys talk about making clear the difference between going out to the Communist Party and Chinese Americans who are in this country, starting businesses, contributing to our economy, and active members of each of our communities?
Thank you for asking that question, because I want to say to every single Chinese American, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being a part of this nation. And I want to say to everybody inside China too, I've been there numerous times. If you listen to my talk today, I never referred to just China, it's the Communist Party of China. And for those Chinese serving in America today, they have the same concern about a Communist Party too, for the lack of freedom. They have the same concern about when it comes to fairness, of stealing of IPs, stealing of the intellectual property that Chinese Americans have built a company. They would believe that's unfair. They would believe it's unfair when they steal and build and weaponize islands. They would think it was wrong for what they are doing with inside Taiwan at the same time. So we want to be very clear in our conversations. This is about the Communist Party of China. And I will spend a moment because of turning over to Michael McCaul, because that has what he has focused on time and again when we did the China Task Force. You want to touch any of this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very important point you're making. It's not the people of China. The people are under intense oppression, and their freedom has been taken away. What I find with all Asian people, and there are many in the Houston area, they were fleeing from something. And if you're Japanese, or if you're, from Vietnam, or you're from a lot of these other Asian countries, they don't like the Chinese Communist Party. And Chairman Xi is a threat to them. So I've found it very unifying, and it's very important not to discriminate. It's not about the people of China, it's about the Communist Party of China. And I think that's something we got to say over and over. But the Taiwanese, for instance, can't stand Chairman Xi and the Communist Party of China more than anything. And what I found, to close with, is the people of China that Chairman Xi is most afraid of. When we translate our Origins of COVID-19 report into Mandarin and got it past their firewall into mainland China, we had 20 articles come out. The foreign minister of China condemned me and the task force and had an hour-long television program. You know why? Because it's the people of China that they're most afraid of. They're selling a bill of goods about the origins of COVID-19.
Any more questions?
There are projections that you guys will take control of the House, although the number of seats has slightly fallen off in recent projections. I'm curious what you attribute that to, in particular with issues like abortion that have seemed to rally Democrats, maybe Mar-a-Lago raid issues with former President Trump. What do you both attribute that to? And I particularly point to when I last saw you at the border several months ago, it seemed like the political climate was more beneficial to Republicans at that point. Have you sensed a change with these 60 days to go?
No. One thing I sense is that I'd ask every American, could you afford to give up 1 month's salary? Most every single American said they cannot. But unfortunately, because of these Democratic policies, it's been taken from them because of inflation. And the sad part about this is Republicans warned them, but Democrats warned them. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers gave them fear and said, do not do it, it will create inflation. But they went forward anyways. Steve Ratner, who was an advisor to Obama, calls it the original sin of inflation. Then what we watched them do when we told the Democrats, remember, the Democrats control everything in Washington. They control the House, they control the Senate, they control the White House. That means they control every lever. They control the ability from our regulation. And now we watch in America, there's a challenge for even baby formula. We watch what they've done to our energy field, that they've raised the price of gasoline. No place in America that I go, they always bring up and complain about the price of gas. And we watch the president smile and laugh and say it was a good thing. Then we watch the crime continue to grow. We watch the Democrats defund the police, but then elect these Democrat prosecutors that won't uphold the law. And we watch rampant what continues to happen. There's no bail process we're watching in New York as well. Then, what we watched when Democrats took all power, they used the Department of Justice to call parents terrorists simply because they wanted to go to a school board meeting and have a say in their kids' education. In the Pledge to America, we'll have a Parents' Bill of Rights because we believe parents should have a say in their kids' education. We watched the past administration stand up here in Houston when the Communist Party of China was stealing American technology. Now we've watched that you had 130 individuals indicted. What did the Biden administration do? Let them go. We watch time and again the mistakes. So when this election comes forward, I think Republicans are going to do quite well. But it's not about the Republican Party. It's about America. If you want your gasoline price lower, you want to become energy independent, you want to stop inflation, you want your streets to be safe again, you want to be able to bring back manufacturing to America, you want to be able to have a say in your kids' education, I think it's a very clear election. And if this election has an opportunity for the clarity between those two, I think there'll be a real change. And I would simply look to, thank you for coming down to the border when we went to the Eagle Pass. But what happened recently? Myra Flores was elected in a district that Biden carried by 13. That's 84% Hispanic. The Republican Party has not represented more than 100 years. I think you're going to see more of that across the country, from Rhode Island to Oregon, to more in Texas, to California, to Nevada, to Florida. Why? Because people are tired of taking of their own money because inflation continuing to run rampant. gas prices continuing going up, and using government for political purposes. You know what the biggest challenge is? It doesn't just stop at the gas station. It doesn't just stop at the grocery store. Every day you go there, the price is higher. Why? It's the Democrat policies, and they do not have one plan to fix it except to double down and make it worse. I appreciate you all for coming. Thank you.